Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right into it today and talk about exactly why you clicked on this. Because, look, here is the ultimate secret of the internet. Virality isn't some random algorithmic lottery. Not at all. It's actually highly engineered human behavior. Today, we're going to break down the exact psychological triggers, the visual designs, and the emotional storytelling techniques that literally turn a piece of content into a global phenomenon. Seriously, take a second and think about your own digital habits. What specific curiosity gap in the title or the thumbnail compelled you to start watching this explainer right this very second? Was it the promise of learning some hidden secret? You see, your click was an emotional and psychological response way before it was ever a physical one.
And that brings us to one of the biggest misconceptions in modern digital culture. We have to immediately shatter this myth of the algorithm as some cold, robotic gatekeeper arbitrarily deciding what gets views and what doesn't. It's just not true. The algorithm is simply a mirror. It doesn't think. It merely reflects our deepest psychological wiring, our dopamine cravings, and our social needs. All that math on the back end, it only exists to measure human behavior.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the 3-second brain test.
3 seconds. That is exactly how long creators have to capture your attention before your thumb just naturally auto-scrolls away. Through rapid pacing and immediate visual payoffs, if you can hold someone for just those first 3 seconds, a massive percentage of those people are going to stay for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or honestly the entire piece of content. But if you fail that 3-second test, your content practically doesn't exist.
The psychology behind why those 3 seconds matter so much is this concept called thin slicing. It's our brain's evolutionary ability to draw incredibly rapid conclusions from really brief exposures. In mere moments, your brain is asking, is this novel? Is this relevant to me? Is the sound design catching my ear? The brain demands an immediate answer, and if it doesn't get one, it just moves on.
So how exactly do creators pass that test? Well, they use highly calculated hooks that hijack that auto-scroll reflex. A truly great hook provides an immediate psychological trigger. Take pattern interruption, for example. This is when a visual norm is totally broken. Think of a guy jumping into a swimming pool wearing a full tailored business suit. Your brain is essentially a pattern recognition machine, and when a pattern breaks, you literally cannot help but look. Whether it's sudden visual motion, an unexpected shocking statement, a super relatable scenario, or a value-first promise leaning heavily into FOMO, these hooks work because they offer immediate, undeniable psychological value.
And short-form platforms are just perfectly optimized for this. They deliver these rapid, low-effort psychological rewards that totally condition our brains to chase the next hit. This is exactly what triggers that endless binge-watching behavior we all fall into. Every single swipe becomes a signal that something new, exciting, or funny is waiting right around the corner.
Moving on to Section 2, the dopamine retention loop.
Let's look at how this builds the ultimate viewer trap, the dopamine loop. A lot of people think dopamine is just the chemical of pleasure, but actually, scratch that. It's really the chemical of anticipation. The loop kicks off with a curiosity hook, which builds that anticipation. Then, the creator gives you a mini reward. Maybe it's a quick joke, a satisfying sound effect, or a rapid visual change. Think about the frenetic, highly calculated pacing of a Mr. Beast challenge. Crucially, right as you get that reward, boom, they introduce a new piece of curiosity. This constant cycle of pacing, suspense, and delayed answers is exactly why you can end up binging content for hours on end. The absolute engine of that loop is the curiosity gap. Think of this as a psychological itch that simply must be scratched. It's the space between what you currently know and what you suddenly, desperately want to know. When a hook says, here's the one mistake destroying your channel, your brain hates having incomplete information. It literally forces you to seek closure by watching all the way to the end. Get this, an absolutely fascinating fMRI study out of Stanford University found that they could forecast real-world internet virality just by looking at brain scans. They found that increased activity in a region of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, which is deeply tied to anticipatory affect and the reward circuit, during the very first moments of watching something, accurately predicted how many millions of views that piece of content would get in aggregate. Your brain's anticipation literally forecasts virality. Mind-blowing, right? Which brings us to Section 3, emotion, identity, and storytelling. Have you ever wondered why you feel so deeply connected to someone you only ever watch through a screen?
Well, it's all because of mirror neurons. When we watch a creator express an emotion, maybe they're crying, laughing, or just showing genuine vulnerability, our brains subconsciously simulate those exact same emotions. This creates a sort of emotional contagion. It's why authentic storytelling feels so personal to us, leading to those really strong parasocial relationships. And that authentic trust, that's the absolute foundation for building a loyal community and turning fleeting viral views into long-term creator monetization and success. And specific emotions dictate specific actions. We see this through the valence arousal dominance model. High arousal emotions, like anger or intense excitement, generate massive amounts of comments. Low arousal emotions, like mild sadness, those generate pretty low engagement. But the absolute sweet spot for making people share your stuff is the magical combination of happiness and surprise. Uplifting, lighthearted content that catches us off guard completely dominates our social feeds for a reason.
Let's hit section 4. Why we actually share. Look, sharing is almost never random. It is deeply, deeply psychological. First and foremost, sharing is identity signaling. When you forward something, you're essentially telling your friends, hey, this reflects who I am and what I believe. We also share for social currency, because sending something insightful makes us look smart. Plus, we are heavily influenced by social proof and the bandwagon effect. If something already has 1 million likes, we're psychologically biased to believe it's highly valuable, making us want to join the community, signal our trust in the creator, and just be part of the cultural moment.
Finally, Section 5, Algorithms Mirror Human Behavior.
So, tying it all together, the algorithm is really just a tracker of human psychology. Let's translate the metrics. Click-through rate, that just measures your curiosity and desire for novelty. Watch time and retention, that measures suspense and the dopamine reward cycle. Shares measure identity signaling and emotional contagion. Comments measure high arousal and community building. And rewatches, they measure deep fascination and viewer satisfaction. The machine isn't promoting content because of some arbitrary code, it's promoting it entirely because of human psychology.
Sure, formats will evolve over time. AI is obviously going to generate content faster, platforms are going to rise and fall. But as long as human nature remains the same, the core rules of virality will never ever change. So the big question to leave you with is this. Now that you understand the psychological wiring of the internet, how will you consciously engineer your own digital habits or the content you create moving forward? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.